All right, welcome to TLDR with Two Nerds in the Truck. Today we are talking about Silent Lake Provincial Park.
So this was an accidental, do you want to say accidental trip?
Yeah,
It was kind of an emergency trip. We were staying in Algonquin the beginning of December, and Highway 11 was closed, so that was our way home. So we decided to head east out of the park and make a pit stop for a couple days at Silent Lake on the way home, just to break up the trip a bit.
yep.
And it gave us an excuse to check out a new park, which we'd be meaning to do, so it saved us a trip in the future.
Absolutely. So first of all, logistics.
So they had weird logistics at this one because they only make a small number of their sites available for pre-booking, um, with everything else being first come first serve. And I'm not a fan of packing up for a camping trip to go to a campground and hope that they have a suitable site, because if you don't know what's available, like if you have a tent, that's one thing, but if you're going with an RV, it's like you may or may not get a site that's big enough, because who knows what they've got, and it's a lot of commitment for not being sure you've got something waiting for you.
Yeah, I don't really like that kind of stress either. I like to say, here's what I have. I've booked it. I've got it. It's reserved.
And especially when we were coming at the last minute, like where we had to, make an emergency plan to get out of Algonquin somewhere other than going through, Gravenhurst. It was a bit of extra stress that we didn't need at that point. I mean, in the end, it turned out fine. We got here. The staff was really nice.
Yep.
I called them ahead of time. They were really great with my answering questions and everything. And then you went in to register.
Yeah, so I went in, and again, she was really nice. She said, here are the ones that are open. She offered that I could go drive around and take a look at them if I wanted. We didn't bother. We just
I'm
kind
glad
of
you didn't. Now that we see the layout, I'm glad you didn't.
I agree. We talked logistics real quick and said we would have wanted one with a nice level pad, and that's what we got. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, like, not a fan of that kind of setup, but I'm glad it worked out the way it did. Like, luckily, they did have something that fit us. Next up's water and waste.
Yeah, their poop loop is closed, so we have to get water from the comfort station if we need it.
Yeah, the interesting thing with theirs is that they don't have a hard set date for when it closes. It just says when freezing temperatures force it to close. Right. Or no, wait, theirs wasn't freezing temperatures force it to close. It's when it becomes impassable due to snow. Now, there's very little snow on the ground here, and it's right next to the entry gate. So it's
a little weird.
Kind of comes off as lazy. It's like it's one thing if it's way down its own road or something, but it's right there. So it's closed because it's impassable due to snow thing, kind of.
Yeah, I agree. It's not really accurate at this point.
There is the waste situation. I think I forgot to mention this on the blog, so I'll have to update it. There is one garbage area for the campground. On the way into the Granite, is it Granite Ridge that we're at?
I think so.
So it's right at the entry to the campground. It's just a little tiny loop off the side of the road, and it's blocked off for some reason. Like, I think they just didn't want to plow it. But the thing is that's about a half a kilometer. Was it a half a kilometer walk? Like a half-kilometer walk or something from the campsite, or maybe it was more. In any case, it's really awkward. There's no parking near there or anything, so it's either you park in the middle of the park road and walk it into this little loop that's not plowed, or nothing. I guess there isn't another. The only other camp area garbage, what do you call it, garbage depot?
Yep.
Is in the campground that's completely blocked off. There's none at the front gate. There's none anywhere. So it's weird that, like, the one that's for this campground you can't really get to unless you walk half a kilometer from your campsite. So that's as far as water and waste. Anyways, snow plowing is the next one. I gotta say, I should have said this when we were first introing. We just came from an absolutely magical stay at Algonquin, and I feel like our review is going to sound really nitpicky, and there's a lot wrong with Silent Lake. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to either like laziness, or I don't know if they just don't have the budget or what.
Yep.
So it would have been a negative review one way or the other, but coming off of a stay at a fantastic park that does put the time and effort into winter camping kind of highlights the issues.
Right. It shows
know?
us what can be done, and then we
Yeah.
go, oh, it wasn't done here.
And by the same system as that, it's like we're an hour and a half away from another Ontario provincial park that does plow and that does make things nice for winter campers. This is probably going to be a really negative review, but that's only partially because of the Algonquin thing. I did want to acknowledge Algonquin because it's hard not to compare and contrast, like when we're talking literally a day later, Anyway, so snow plowing.
There's not a lot that's been done. So
no.
You mentioned there's not a lot of snow. I'm going to say maybe 8 centimeters total.
Like total accumulation, though. This was not super recent.
So it's not like we are expecting, like a ton of effort really to be done. So the main campground roads have been plowed and sanded.
Mostly.
To some level. Like not all that well done, but they have done it.
My problem with the main road, and this is going to sound so nitpicky, is I feel like in campgrounds, there's usually 2 levels of snow plowing. They always do the main roads really well.
Yep.
And then the campground roads, maybe not quite so well.
Yep.
And I feel like the main roads here are maybe not even quite as good as campground roads in other parks.
I'll agree with you there. Another note is it's a pretty hilly area. This is not
in the campground itself, like not necessarily the main campground.
Even the main one isn't completely.
It's not as
flat.
bad as the campground that we're in, though.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying is just don't picture this flat terrain. There's some hills to.
And that's the thing. It's not just the snow plowing, right? So there's the snow plowing, and then there's salting and sanding. I didn't see any evidence of salting at all, and we're at pretty warm, like not super. It did get to -8 and stuff, but I feel during the daytimes, salting could have been done. Definitely in the day use area, which we can get to in a second. But the sanding is very sporadic in this. During our stay, it was very sporadic. So on the part where it was right up a hill, like a really steep hill in the Granite Ridge campground, there was a bit of sand, and that was about it. There's a lot of icy places.
There was no evidence of any plowing at all on the actual campground roads.
That's the thing, is that the roads are just basically what people drove over to pack it down, and that makes for very icy conditions. And then if you put that with, they're only sanding in certain places.
Yep.
And I don't want to sound like I'm snotty or bougie or anything, but I'm probably going to end up saying cheap and lazy a few times. And that's just, when I look at like the sanding situation, it's like, did they not have enough budget to put sand elsewhere, or was it laziness and they're just like, oh, we'll just put it there and be fine? I don't know. It could go either way. It could be both. But again, it's kind of something that we haven't really seen at other parks that really do put the effort in for the winter safety and the winter campers and make it a nice area,
When we were coming up to our spot, our campground, there was one particular spot where there was a tight turn and then a hill. And I'm like, oh man, I wasn't actually sure if we were going to make it up because we have a motorhome and we're towing a car. So I took that turn as fast as I felt safe and I goosed it.
Yeah, and there wasn't sand at that point either. That was just driven over.
Right.
I think they sanded since we got here. And now for additional context, we showed up here on the Sunday morning or like Sunday afternoon, right? It had not snowed, I believe, in 24 hours before that. And when we did our big drive around to like really take a look at like where did they sand and wherever, that was 24 hours after we got here. So I feel like even if it had snowed like the minute before we got here, that's still 24 hours to plow. And it's not a huge park, so I feel like that's bare minimum that wasn't met.
Yep. And we did make it up the hill. It was fine, but I was definitely concerned. And the roads are very narrow and very hilly.
And turny, too. Yep. Like, you can be turning as you're going up a hill, too.
Yeah.
So then there's the matter of the day use area. So the day use area is a skating rink, and it's not intended to be. The worst part of it is, so it's sheer ice. Like, the where we parked, we got out, and it was worse than a penguin waddle trying to get out of there. But it was right next to the bulk of the accessible parking was ice. And it's like, if there's anywhere in a parking lot that you don't want the really icy section to be, it's the disabled parking. So I found that was kind of, I don't want to say slap in the face, but it's like, geez, man, like, salt it, like salt that ice,
And if
put some sand down. There was
exactly.
nothing. There was absolutely no mitigation in place there.
Oh, absolutely. I had a difficult time getting out of the car. Actually, it was that icy.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. Like, it's like ice happens. Obviously, it's Canada, it's winter, but you put some sand down.
Yep.
You put something, you mitigate it, and there was no mitigation at all. So I feel like we could rant like that forever. We won't. On the accessibility notice, our next thing, or sorry, I skipped connectivity, but I mean, I'm already talking about accessibility, so whatever. Not an accessible park. If you are a wheelchair user, do not bother coming here in the wintertime. There's nothing for you here. If you have mobility issues in any way, probably not the best park to come to. I really wasn't able to do anything while we were here just based on the trail conditions. And stuff like there's a trail that goes from right next to the site we were in down to the beach. Do you want to talk about that? It's not a marked trail. It's just the path to the beach. And if you're in a park, there's the campground park. You don't trail to the beach. You expect like a little walk that you can bring your kids down, whatever. What was it?
Oh, it was a lot steeper than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, the sign just says, beach 400 meters, and I assumed just a stroll. So I was going to get some sunset pictures and was walking. You go up a little hill, and then all of a sudden you go down 50 meters, like literally, and it's fairly steep and windy.
You're going down a 50-meter elevation change, not you're going down for 50 meters.
Right, exactly. So over the course of this 400 meters, less than that actually, because the bottom's pretty flat. You're going down really steep. Obviously, it was snow covered here, and I had to really watch my step. So I ended up taking a shorter trip than I wanted because I didn't want to come back when it was too dark and try to, manage that. But there's no way you'd get a stroller down there. There's no way you'd bring, a wheeled wagon or cooler or something down there. If you've got any kind of mobility issues, I do not recommend it.
And the thing is that they've got one of the campgrounds completely blocked off for the winter. That campground also happens to have the parking for the beach. So while I'm not able to walk down the path to the beach, the drive to the beach is also not accessible now. So I'm not a fan of feeling like I'm hampered. That and the thing is that the campground that is blocked off they're still renting it out. They just have it. We'll talk about that in a minute, but there's no real reason to do that except for they don't want to plow it.
Yep.
So yeah, basically just between like the layout and what's blocked off and what's available and the washroom situation, which we'll get to in a minute, and the lack of maintenance. It's just, if you have mobility issues, don't come here. If you don't have mobility issues, be careful in the day use area because you might end up with them. Well, I mean, really, you could have. We don't need more than one disabled person in this truck.
Fair.
So I did skip connectivity.
Yep, we are on Rogers Wireless, and we've had very good connection.
We've been streaming movies, no problem.
Yeah, and
streaming movies because we can't go anywhere.
I checked when we were scouting out the park, and I had a good connection out at the day use area. I didn't check everywhere, but it seems like a good connection.
Yeah, I did too. I was looking at the phone a few times while we were driving throughout, and there was no problem. Obviously, your mileage may vary based on carrier, but Rogers Wireless was fine. Pets.
I have
We saw a dog.
Did we see a dog?
We saw a dog. That's it. There's no mention of pets on their website, and there's no mention of pets on their map, which was interesting because usually if they skip mentioning pets on the park website, they'll have like a little blurb or something on the map handout.
Sure.
There was nothing about that there. The only mention I saw of dogs in the entire park was a sign in the day use area saying dogs weren't allowed, I think on the beach itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. So I would say the basic rules probably just apply, where it's, keep them leashed, pick up after them, no excessive noise, don't let them harass other campers and other wildlife. Yeah. I forgot to mention the maps.
You're right.
So we'll go back to maps. Logistics. So the map was an 11 by 17 full color. It's got the full map on one side and it's got a bit of information on the other. And then we got a separate map, which is the summer trail system. That's interesting because winter camping is actually mentioned on the main map. And the summer trail system was kind of useless. The we'll get to that in a bit, but basically, it's kind of we visited during a time where there's kind of a crossover period between summer trail and winter trail, so it's not really useful as a hiking trail, and it's not quite ready for
Right.
snowshoeing and stuff. I did see ski trails, but
Marks from ski, yeah.
I think they were jumping the gun a little bit. But I mean, I can understand.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
I'd be excited too.
But it's not quite a ski trail yet, but it's not really appropriate as a hiking trail.
Yep.
So it was just weird to get the hiking trail. It's definitely closer to being the ski trail at this point. As far as signage, I think the signage is pretty good through the park. I didn't see a ton of signage, but it's not. It doesn't really need a ton.
Right. It pointed us in the right direction. The one-ways were clearly labeled.
Yeah.
I had no complaints.
As far as parking goes, so there's only a few parking lots throughout the park. Like there's the day use area, and there's the was it Bonnie Pond or whatever trail. For the amount of campers we saw during our trip, it seemed perfectly legit. Again, my big issue with the parking was the skating rink.
Yeah.
So not much to say on the parking. Aurora.
Yeah. Are there any good spots to get a good northern view?
So the only spot really, so here's the thing. The park theoretically should be a good place for Aurora just because it is kind of in the middle of nowhere. There is Bancroft kind of off to the northeast, but it's very small and it doesn't contribute a lot to the light pollution. Like if you look at this park on a light pollution map, it's in the blue, and there's a little bit of green off to the northeast, but generally the whole area is blue north of here. The thing is that you really want a wide open space. The entire campground itself is located on the north side of the shore, so you've got a good south-facing view. But if you want a north-facing view, you're going to have to walk.
I think you said it was about 3 kilometers.
It's 3 kilometers from the day use parking, so it's actually more like 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah.
So it's you have to go for quite a hike, and honestly, during the winter, and I mean, well, I guess not even a hike. You'd have to ski there,
right?
Because that's on the ski trail, and I don't know about hauling equipment.
Oh,
and
man.
No, it doesn't seem like a good deal.
The terrain in general is pretty rocky too. So
Yeah.
if there's not a lot of snow, I can imagine that the trails are probably a little dangerous here and there. So long story short, I don't recommend that. It probably would be a good view, but probably not worth the risk.
Good for for sky viewing. If you went to the day use area, I would not recommend walking down from the campground to the beach for aforementioned reasons. But the day use area is dark. I didn't notice any lights there. So, I mean, there's probably from the comfort station. But generally speaking, if you go down to the beach there, you'll get a good view of a starry sky. If you get a really big aurora show, like an overhead one, it would be perfectly fine, because the big thing is, in that case, it's light pollution, and there's no light pollution to worry about here.
Yes.
Now onto the washrooms. The washroom situation. Here's another, just a weird decision-making thing, and it does seem kind of cheap or lazy. So,
yeah, we were exploring around, and we said, oh, there's a comfort station. Let's grab a photo for the blog.
Right in the campground, literally right in the main campground. So there's 2 campgrounds. They're both rented. Like they're both, you can book in both of them. But one is gated off, and you have to drag your stuff in. And there's the other main campground, which seems to be more popular for obvious reasons.
Yep.
So you would think, and this is more centrally located, you would think that the comfort station here would be, if there's going to be one comfort station, it would be here, right? No.
Yeah, as we pulled up, we saw it was not plowed. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird, because the main road was, quote, plowed.
Yeah.
There was an attempt at least. And then you noted the signs on there, and we took a look, and sure enough, it said that it was closed, no water.
And it's specifically for the winter season. So it wasn't just that the water was out, it's that it was not winterized and whatever. And it directed people to the day use area. Now, the day use area is like 1.5 kilometers away from the campground, and across an ice rink.
Yeah.
So, as it turns out, the day use area is used, that's the main trailhead for all the skiing and stuff. So I can see why they'd have a heated comfort station there. But why rent out campsites?
Yeah.
And not have, you know what I mean? Have both of them if you're going to do that. Not just send all the campers over to the day use area because that's the showers and the flush toilets. And because of this, there's no laundry. Like the campground has laundry facilities in the comfort station that's closed, so you don't have access to that. But you've got to go a kilometer and a half to get a shower. It's just a weird situation. And that also plays into like me being just really annoyed at the situation of the parking there. Because if you have to go there, like we don't have to go there, we can do our shower in the truck and everything, but some people can't. So you have to go there and you have to traverse sheet ice to get there. It's just, you would think if you're kind of forcing people to go there, you'd put some sand down.
I agree. It is really weird.
I'm sure I sound really fussy. It's just like, I'm very big on logistics and I'm very big on common courtesy. And to me, if I was going to open a campground for the winter, I would think, what do I need to do to make this accessible? Not even in a disability sense, but just, okay, what are the campers going to need? What's going to be most convenient? Go with that and plan around it. And I don't feel like they did that, Anyway. Oh, I'm getting all riled up and all that.
Let's move on then.
Yeah, okay. So next up is Park Store. You've got the experience with that one.
Yeah, so I mentioned I went in for the check-in and getting our spot. I was amazed because it's not a very big room, but there's a lot of stuff there. But it doesn't look chaotic either. Like it's well organized.
Yeah.
For having that much stuff in a small area, it is well organized.
It's a TARDIS of a park store. And it was nice stuff too. Like they've got board games and like bougie looking bath stuff and everything that you have to use in the day use.
Yeah. It was really cute.
Take your fancy soap over to the day use area.
It was definitely a lot of really cool items there. I could see cruising through there if I had more time.
Yeah. So on that note, there is no visitor center here. And there's no separate park store. So it's not that that's the park store because the main one was closed or anything. That is the park store. So campsite details. So they've got several different kinds of camping here. They've got car camping. They've got walk-in camping, yurts, and cabins.
Right. So the walk-in camping has no electricity, right?
Right.
So that's kind of a double heck no for me. Not only do I not want a tent camp, but if I was gonna, I would want to be able to have electricity.
Well, and the weird thing about this, so during the year, like during the summertime, they have a section that's off of the Granite Ridge. I keep calling it Granite Ridge. I should make sure that that's actually what this is. It's Granite something. Let me just take a look. This quality, I was going to say viewing, but listening. Granite Ridge Campground. So basically, there's a loop kind of near Granite Ridge Campground that has walk-in campsites. And there's no, well, I guess there is a drive-up parking in there. So fine. That is not reservable during the winter. The ones that are intended for walk-in camping.
Okay.
So instead, the Pincer Bay Campground, which you access near the Bonnie's Pond Trail, that is gated off. And that all becomes walk-in camping. And now there's campsites and yurts there. It's all walk-in. So you have to park at the Bonnie's Pond Trail head. So, and there's a good, at least a couple dozen sites there. And the parking lot is not really big enough for that. So I'm assuming it's not a huge draw.
Probably.
But there's a rack of toboggans there for you to cart your stuff in. So you have to toboggan your stuff to your campsite or your yurt. And then you have to bring the toboggan back.
Right. Because
you're not allowed to keep it for the duration of your stay. There was probably, 10 of them or so. So that to me, that's just annoying, Again, because like, if you're going to rent the sites out, just plow it. There's nothing, if it's a campground that people can drive into in the summer, just plow it,
Yep.
I can't see having to toboggan your stuff and being a draw for anyone.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's weird. I find it weird. And again, it comes off as like cheap or lazy to me because it's like if you really don't want to plow it, then don't rent it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you want to book those sites, I don't think they're giving anyone a discount for having to toboggan their stuff in, and they don't even have the courtesy of here's your toboggan for the weekend.
Yeah, I don't understand what the draw is there. It's not like they're waterfront sites or anything like that.
No. So I guess the draw is that they're closer to the beach because they won't let you drive to it.
Yeah, I suppose.
Anyway.
Yeah, the rest of the campground we mentioned it's pretty hilly, so be prepared for that.
It's nice enough. Like there's trees and it's really pretty. I'm assuming it's pretty in the summer.
Some of the sites look like they were kind of multi-level to kind of accommodate some of the hilly terrain.
So the kind where you kind of park at one level and then walk down to a tent, those are really pretty. Kind of just a basics campground though. Like there's not really
Yep.
anything of note. It's nice enough. It's pretty. There's the winter trees and everything around, but
Yeah, there's some privacy between. It's not like it's one of those open field kind of.
it's hard to tell
campground.
how much of that's legit privacy and how much of it that the park's kind of empty though.
That's fair, but there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of trees around. Put it that way. It's not
There's a lot of trees, but you
maybe
can
not
see
fully
it from a
private,
distance. Yeah.
but you've got some separation.
It's hard to tell because the signage, the way things are, it's hard to tell where each of the sites are, unless you're on top of it. And plus, so the website says plowed website, so they're supposed to be plowing them, but they're not plowed. So it's like you look and you're like, oh, I see a picnic table.
That's exactly. A lot of the driveways were just fully snow. The ones where somebody had obviously stayed there recently, it was really obvious that it was a spot. But other than that, it's just unplowed.
Then there's cabins, and the cabins are all on one small little loop near the day use area, so they're all in one spot. They were cute enough. They definitely seemed like they'd been there a while.
Yeah, I think a fresh coat of stain would make them look a lot nicer. But as far as structurally, they looked
they look
fine.
Structurally sound. They just look kind of old.
Yeah.
The yurts are interesting because I made a note when we walked by. I'm like, oh, that yurt looks kind of junky. Like the first one I saw it had seen better days,
Yep.
And then that next yurt we saw was under construction, and then the one after that was under construction. So I think they must be replacing them because they're not new yurts per the map. These were all on a spot that's marked as being a yurt. So I'm guessing they were all kind of junky at some point and are being replaced. So I would imagine if you're booking further down the line, you're going to get a decent looking yurt.
And not just the yurt either, like the whole deck around it and everything. So they're spending their snowplow budget on the yurts.
That's where the sand went. Yeah, no, but the junky looking one, like the whole area looked pretty junky. And so the new ones are looking great. So that's going to be great. I don't know when they're going to be done. Some of the ones we saw looked like the yurt itself was done.
Yeah.
Because they had like the installed glass and everything. It still had like the stickers on the glass and whatnot. So
I'm assuming they're going to try to get them all done by the spring.
Oh no, I think they're going to be done for the skiing season.
Oh yeah?
I think those are very close to being done, and the fact that they're working on them, today. I mean, I know it's a Monday, but it's winter,
December,
so I don't think they'd.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know that they'd do that if they were pushing for spring because they look pretty close to being done.
Oh, that's fair.
Anyway, so those are your camping options. As far as activity options, there's not a lot going on in the park aside from the skating rink.
Yeah.
To be clear, it's not a skating rink. There is no skating rink in the park at all. There's no mention of skating rinks on the website. I Googled to see if there's historically been any kind of skating, like maybe on the lake or anything. No skating except for walking to the day use area.
Yep. Yeah, we mentioned cross-country skiing isn't really up in full swing yet, but there are a lot of trails.
So the trails, there are 3 hiking trails and 1 mountain biking trail here. So there's let me be serious here. Bonnie's Pond Trail is 3 kilometers. That one takes you around a pond and through a couple different kinds of forest. There's the Lakeshore Trail is 15 kilometers, which I clearly was not going to walk because I can do 3 kilometers at a time. But I'd been hoping to go down by the lake because a lot of it kind of skirts along the lake near the campsite. So I thought I'd get in a kilometer or 2 here and there. But when he reported on the condition, I just noped out of that.
Yep.
Then there's the Lakehead Loop, which is a small loop off of the lakeshore one that's near the day use area. But again, the same thing. The conditions aren't really great for that right now, so I just skipped out. It's in a weird time where it's not maintained, so it's going to be really difficult for hiking.
Yep.
But there's not quite enough snowpack or anything for the winter activities. I'm assuming in a month or so it's going to be fantastic. Right. It's just a weird transition spot right now.
Yeah, when I walked the trail to the beach, there were several sections of exposed rock and some muddy areas. So I would not have wanted to ski in a condition like that.
Yeah, but then gross. As far as hiking, it's also
a little
slippery and yeah. So just a weird transition period. And now there's also a mountain biking trail of 17 kilometers that goes along outside the whole thing, and that also becomes a ski trail. So I did, as I mentioned, I did see a couple ski tracks near the day use area, but it's not quite set up for that. When it does, there's ski trails of all kinds of different lengths and different difficulties, and they've got color coding, and that's not in place right now, but it looks like a good setup.
And I think that's going to be one of the main draws of the park in the winter.
I really do think that's it. So I think, especially with the way the day use area is, like where the comfort station is, I feel like maybe this park is a draw for cross country skiing, and then they tacked camping on top of it. Yeah, like I feel like the campground's an afterthought. You know what I mean? Like I think it's tacked on. Like it's probably convenient for people that are coming from a distance
Yep.
to ski, but I feel like it should be treated like a campground itself. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like some resources should be dedicated to that haven't been. Yes. Anyway, birding, wildlife, and nature. This was the equal and opposite to the Algonquin experience.
It really was. When they named the Silent Lake, they were accurate. It is quiet down there.
I haven't heard a single bird the entire time we were here.
I heard myself. A couple of chickadees on the trail right next to the lake for a short time, and then it was just quiet again.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. When we were getting ready to come here, I checked all the apps. Like I checked Audubon and iNaturalist and stuff like that to see like what the most recent check-ins have been, and they were 2 months ago. So no one's reported a single bird or anything since. So
yeah, I've looked around the campsite and haven't seen anything.
And no tracks. There's no tracks of anything. Like usually you'll see like bird feet or squirrels or something. There's nothing. It's really odd. But I guess that explains the lack of check-ins. It's not just us. Yeah. You know? Right. So not much to report there. For snowshoeing, I should have said with the ski trails, two of the trails are also for snowshoeing. So ice skating, as I said, the only ice skating is the unintentional one. They do have ice fishing, though, on the lake when the conditions permit, and it's for lake trout. Haven't seen anything about dog sledding. Their discovery program is limited to the summer. Niantic games.
We did find some Ingress portal or some Pokestops, in which we presume would be Ingress portals too, down by the day use area. So enough to get your daily in, and do a little bit of game playing if you want to.
Few and far between aside from that, though.
Yeah, I think there were like 3 portals, a gym,
something like that.
So there's minimal, but
it gets the job done.
Connectivity plus a couple. It's like got it.
So final thoughts.
If we were here during cross country skiing, I would probably be more interested. But still, seeing how the terrain is, it's probably not a beginner one. I can't say for sure because I didn't go on all those trails.
They did have some that are marked novice.
Okay.
And honestly, the area down by the day use area, because at one point I got off the road and just went down to see the footbridge. That looked like it would be fairly novice. There was a little bit of a hill, but it seemed pretty like wide and relatively level. I imagine it's beautiful. I honestly imagine, I bet this place is super popular for cross-country skiing.
Yeah, I could see that. It was just when I walked that trail to the beach, seeing how the terrain changed and driving around the campground. Yeah. I have concerns that as a beginner, I would be in a little bit of trouble there.
Well, I think the area that you went to is not the novice area of the trail. So my thing, though, is like I was thinking we'd check this park out and then maybe book like a bigger stay later. I'm not inclined to, honestly. Like I kind of want to know what the cross country skiing's like, but on the other hand, it's like the snow hasn't been here that long. There's not a ton of snow, so there wasn't like a huge effort to deal with, but it's enough to be obnoxious. Like it's enough that the pack makes it icy, and that there's areas where I wasn't quite sure if you'd be able to drive through in the little car.
Yep.
And I just have to think that if they're not dealing with that now, what would the driving condition be a month from now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's going to be more ice packed on it, and there's going to be like, I don't know if it's that they wait until skiing season to really take it seriously, but I feel like I don't really want to gamble a trip on that.
Right. And the fact that they don't keep their sanitation station open in the winter is also a check against it.
It's annoying, and it just it seems rude. Like it honestly, when we got here, there were certain aspects of it. I'm like, this is giving me Kill Bear vibes. We love during the fall and everything. We
Yep.
love going there and not winter. We went last winter, and it honestly seemed like a cash grab because they had half the park blocked off. There was not much you could do. They advertised groomed trails, and they were not groomed trails. Like, they were really, really overdone, like over snowed and everything. And it hadn't just snowed or anything. It's just they hadn't been groomed at all. And I just remember thinking, like, where they closed off the dump station, and they didn't have anything up telling anyone about that. It kind of seemed like a cash grab. Like, they're like, well, why don't we open and see if anyone camps, but we're not going to do anything for them, you know? And I get the same vibe here. So it's just basically we've been to campgrounds where thought is put into winter camping.
Yes.
You know? Like, Algonquin is magical. I don't know if anything will ever measure up to Algonquin. We've been to McGregor like a million times in the winter. That's kind of our default. And you don't feel like you're missing out. Like, there's a couple campgrounds that are blocked off, but you don't feel like you're getting half an experience there.
Right.
You know? And here it's like, okay.
Yep.
And especially where they don't plow. It's just like you can't even do the basic minimum. So to me, even on its own, I don't think I'd want to come back. But then when you contrast it with the fact that, like, oh well, less than an hour and a half from here, you've got Algonquin. There's no competition, you know.
Exactly.
And if you look at it in terms of 3 hours drive from our home, well, McGregor's 3 hours drive from our home, so there's no competition there either, you know.
Right.
So it was nice to be able to stop partway because it was going to be a long drive home. But as a destination, I don't think I'd come back. I bet it's nice in the summer, though. But it's winter camping. I'm not into it.
Right. I agree. I'm not really that interested in coming back in the winter. I might check it out in the summer. Or if we end up, you know, if it makes sense logistically to stop by on a trip, I would, you know, consider it.
Yeah, like a stopover point rather than a destination.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I hate that we have to be so negative about it because, like, we had such an amazing trip at Algonquin, you know, and I want to underscore it's not just that we're comparing it to Algonquin, but that definitely, it underscores like what a winter camping experience can be. And it's not just like Algonquin's a bigger park or there's more wildlife or anything like that. It's like they plow and they, you know, they put some effort in. Like, they put up the skating rink there and have Christmas lights out, and they've got, you know, fire pits out that weren't there in the summer, and just they make it an experience. Like, they give you a different experience. Like, they actually give you an experience instead of just we open up and
you can stay
whatever.
here.
Yeah, you can stay here. So yeah, that's that.
That's it. Well, check out our blog. You can see all this information along with lots of cool photos and
well, some cool photos for this one. We didn't get a lot.
Fair enough.
It wasn't a super scenic site. Down at the Dayus, it's pretty, but there's not a whole lot of different scenery here, you know.
I agree.
I'm sure there is if you go out on the hike, though. So I guess if you've been here cross-country skiing, I would love to know what it's like.
I would too.
So definitely comment and tell us, you know, or share some pictures. I would love to see them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyways, like and subscribe.
Yep.
Check out the blog.
Until
Stay
next time.
Stay tuned for the next one that hopefully is going to be more positive. It is going to be more positive because I think our next one's McGregor, and I love McGregor.
All right.
Okay. See ya.